Hi, I'm Baldur Gudgeirsson, founder of TPC Consulting and a best-selling author in business and technology. In this introduction, we will discuss President Trump's trade war and how we expect it to progress on a timeline if tariffs do not change back to the previous stages. President Trump announced on Liberation Day, April 2, 2025, that he would impose reciprocal tariffs on all countries. These tariffs are a shift in the trading policies and have dramatically changed the world. All countries have relied on the free cross-border trade system developed globally since 1991, following the collapse of the communist structure and the reform of the Chinese and Indian economies. Trump's reciprocal tariffs are the highest in a century. They could sink the global economy into a painful recession, harm the United States more than the countries they target, and weaken America's global standing. President Trump's trade war is expected to disrupt international trade, dampen economic growth, and elevate inflation rates worldwide. If things do not change fast, we have reached the end of free cross-border trade. Let us explain how we project President Trump's trade war will affect the global economy on a timeline showing how things will progress. As we know, President Trump started a full-blown trade war globally in March 2025 without explaining any details about what he wants to accomplish. Everyone has been left in turmoil and trying to understand what is happening and how it is possible to work the best way out of this situation. Suddenly, Trump announced a complete 3-month pause on all reciprocal tariffs that went into effect at midnight the day before. This applies for all except China, Canada, and Mexico. The period between May and August will be a thorough assessment of the situation, and markets will prepare for it and start to make changes. July through December will be the moment of truth. Firstly, many global companies' annual reports for Q2, Q3, and Q4 will be very unpleasant, and people will realize that the standard of living has dramatically changed for the worse. December is the period when everyone must embrace their losses. People will have to face lower standards of living, and companies have adjusted their structure to a new business reality. Starting in January 2026 and based on new playground rules, markets start building up the global economy. Fair trade instead of free trade cross borders will be the new norm going forward. Things might progress faster or slower, especially for the moment of truth timeline. Moving forward, Trump's trade war decision will determine the extent of the damage. Now, let's explain each timeline in greater detail, starting with explaining President Trump's trade war. President Trump has clearly explained that the tariffs are set because he claims his country has been ripped off by other countries for years, resulting in large trade deficits, and he is going to quickly correct the situation. Trump has started a full-blown trade war globally without explaining any details about what he wants to accomplish. Other than that, he wants to get all lost production plants back in his country. This trade war was set up as us against them, in which Trump positions other countries as enemies and blames them for his country's trade deficits. Trump's approach has overruled every recognized economic and financial theory. The new rules of the game are forced negotiations, taking the risk of putting his own country into spiral recession. Trump said, explaining his approach, "We can make a really fair deal, a good deal for the United States, not a good deal for others. This is America first. The United States, the world's largest economy, is being ripped off by cheating rivals. Trump tariffs have no logic and go against current trade agreements and two nations partnerships. He implied that America's former allies in the European Union are such unrelenting foes that a fair agreement can never be reached. Additionally, he threatened to raise cumulative tariffs on China over 100%. Moreover, Trump's 10% tariffs on Australia, one of its biggest allies, which shows positive trade deficits, are not the act of a friend. Australians are very angry about Trump's tariffs. These attacks and many others like them have led to huge uncertainty in the global economy. It is the nature of businesses that they will try their best to adjust to a changing world. Trump expects that all countries will wait in line to make a better trade deal with the United States, and the message is that the last one in line will get the worst deal. However, how is it possible to make a deal with someone that claims upfront it is not going to be a good deal for you? In that case, a bad deal for other countries means, in that case, the American people will be hit by a shocking price increase. The worse the deal is, the more the prices will increase. Businesses make financial and capital investments based on economic stability, trust, and the economic impact of their investment over the next 5 to 10 years. Obviously, it is not feasible to make investment and build factories in total uncertainty. If tariffs are suddenly lowered or negotiated down, then companies would be left in losses, having made capital investments by thinking the tariffs are persistent. President Trump has put the following reciprocal tariffs on his top trading partners. European Union gets 20%, Canada 25%, China has now been raised to 104% tariffs and then again to 125%, and no one knows what happens next. Mexico 25%, Japan 24%, Vietnam 25%, South Korea 25%, and Taiwan 32%. These taxes are extremely high, applied without delay, and make no sense. April 9, 2025, Trump announced a complete 3-month pause on all reciprocal tariffs that went into effect at midnight the day before. This applies to all countries except China. However, Canada and Mexico would continue to be tariffed by as much as 25% due to a separate directive by Trump. Keep in mind that pausing does not mean it's over. Trade wars are just getting started, and the consequences are waiting around the corner. Though President Trump paused the reciprocal tariffs, he puts tariffs on the poorest and most struggling countries, and it will be hurting their economy dramatically. Bangladesh gets 37%, South Africa 30%, Cambodia 49%, Pakistan 29%, and Algeria 30%. Tariffs on the poor countries will create pressure to further reduce the labor costs, potentially encouraging child labor and longer working hours to decrease export prices. There is so much uncertainty, there is no plan. No one knows if the USA tariffs are here to stay or if they change tomorrow. Up or down, nobody knows. No one knows Trump's plans. They change every day and there are no explanations following his trade war other than he is forcing negotiations to the table. Confusion destroys power, and not the other way around. Trump is saying one thing today and the opposite tomorrow. One might think the winner is the one who lasts the longest, We are going through a stage of great disturbance, confusion and uncertainty. In this case, the longer you wait, the more likely it is that it will not be possible to reverse the damage done. It is the people who will suffer the damage, and the United States will be hit the hardest. This means that the United States is heading into recession. In these circumstances, there will be a radical shift in consumer buying behavior. Buying foreign will now cost Americans a lot more. People will spend less on travel and entertainment, and they will postpone larger investments. Trump continues to explain why the trade war exists and who is to blame for it. United States has lost its credibility, and there is no way companies can make financial decisions and capital investments based on decisions where large economic factors constantly change. As mentioned in the previous video, as a result of Trump's trade war, there will be a global recession, financial instability, markets will change its trade partnerships, and there will be a huge restructuring cost, and all this leads to a declining standard of living. And most importantly, consumers are to pay for the trade war through higher cost of living. This time period is about trying to understand what is happening and how it is possible to work the best way out of the situation. There is total uncertainty if Trump's tariffs are here to stay or if they are to be negotiated. This uncertainty has resulted in a total collapse of the global stock market, and when tariffs are paused, the stock market goes up again. And then, when markets realize it's too late to reverse, the stock drops again. Companies are holding back exporting products to the United States because they would like to have clarification if the tariffs are here for the long term or if they will be constantly changing. No company wants to import products into the USA, paying tariffs and realizing afterwards that the tariffs do no longer exist. This could lead to huge losses for these companies, where they must reduce prices at later stages and take in big losses. Think about it. The United States do not need alliances countries. Long-term friendships and all trade agreements have been terminated. A world population of 7.8 billion is being attacked, with an attitude and statements like, "I do not care, America first, we are going to make America rich again." These statements will hit America hard. Due to attitude issues, the United States will be hit the hardest by this trade war. The trade war will lead to fluctuations in global currency markets, leading to broader financial market instability, where investors must overcome uncertainties by investing in assets like gold and treasury bonds, rather than local businesses. There is total confusion. Prices will go up and some products will no longer be available for sales, and therefore people in the United States stockpile products and store shelves become empty. People buy upfront everything between groceries and cars before the price increases. This is the time point where the shit hits the fan. Protests will escalate in the United States. The situation is such that at the same time people protest in the United States, a 7.8 billion people outside the US is turning its back on the United States. People will spend less on travel and entertainment and postpone larger investments. There is a total confusion. People are getting concerned, seeing their 401k pension plan lowering because stock markets are falling. Markets will change their strategic alliances and they will look at other like-thinking markets for deal-making. The trade war will instantly destroy the many years of work a company has invested in building its brands globally. As a result of this, many companies will go bankrupt. Trump's trade war is breaking up the free trade cross-border system that has been many decades in building and development. The system has distributed wealth and prosperity globally, but the system is far away from being perfect. Tariffs should have been modified gradually over time, not radically overnight. American international companies selling their brand products globally maintain a low profile. This is because they understand that taking a stand and criticizing this trade war could be dangerous, as it would only fuel attacks on their brand's product sales. The trade war would then have a brand name initiating 7.8 billion people. Over this period, policymakers and businesses worldwide should closely monitor economic developments and prepare for the potential economic shifts. Companies' annual reports will be presented for Q2 early July, Q3 early October, and Q4 in January 2026. The outcome for many companies will be very unpleasant and it will continually worsen. This applies especially to American companies selling their branded products globally. The third and fourth quarter will be bottom low. Import and export revenues will decline and companies must adjust to the new reality, often with increased costs, plants closing, and layoffs. This results in the stock market value will decline to a bottom low. At this time, it will be clear that it takes 4 years to move production between countries, including developing local production skills. If production is moved to an undesirable market, product prices could double. As long as Trump makes decisions by the day and continually makes radical economic changes, no one will move their production to the USA. The practicality doing business with the United States will plunge because it's too risky and costly. Over this period, production plants will close, huge job layoffs are necessary, and particular industries will go bankrupt. The consumers are to pay for the trade war through higher cost of living. Brand products and consumer prices will increase due to the trade war. Increased costs of production and transportation is inevitable. People have to face lower standard of living. Prices are up and the product availability and mix has changed in many markets. The dollar will weaken, interest rates will go up as a result of increased inflation. The 401k plan has dramatically lowered. Traveling for Americans will be very costly as a result of this. This is what we call recession. It will take a long time for the USA to get their global markets back into business. As a result of this, the world has changed and people will adjust to new market reality. People will be under constant pressure and stress. There are more changes than they can handle. There will be increased psychological and anger issues, especially in the United States. Markets will understand that bringing all lost production plants back to the home market could double prices. The United States does not have the capabilities and strength anymore to be a competitive manufacturing country. Maintaining tariffs to protect industries will weaken competition, lead to higher prices and lower quality, and give consumers fewer choices for products and services. On the other hand, there is now full understanding that a free cross-border trade system enables companies to offer the lowest retail prices to consumers on all markets. However, this system is not perfect. The only way to beat global competition is to strengthen local businesses so that they can become more competitive on a worldwide scale. This calls for a more effective education system, higher skill development, and encouraging innovation and intelligent thinking within local communities. In this period, the lasting businesses will begin to stabilize and understand how to make revenue and profit in the new global market economy. Companies have positioned themselves for how to go to market and understand how to make profitable revenue and growth. Fair trade instead of free trade cross borders will be the new norm, where several factors will be considered, such as local salary, market costs, and government financial backing in particular industries. Free trade interventions tend to encourage and protect large corporations and investors rather than actual development and sustainability factors. These factors include labor, government support for particular industries, and the environment. In this sense, a fair trade regime makes a strong case for development and implementation. In 2026, the global economy continues to grow effectively based on the new global market reality. In this introduction, we have covered the timeline behind how President Trump's trade war will affect the global economy. If you want to learn in detail how to evaluate markets' nature and effectiveness, I recommend my book Business Innovation. In the book, one chapter explains in detail how to evaluate markets' nature and effectiveness. If you are interested in working with us on designing and developing defense and attack strategies for the trade war for your company, please contact us on our website www.tpc.is and we will be in touch. Thank you all for watching. I would appreciate if you would leave a comment below about what you think about President Trump's trade war. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to my channel. On my YouTube channel, I will discuss cutting-edge business and technology.